Song from my era. You're probably too young for that one.
Perhaps.
You know that song? Here we go. Here we go. Here we I'll just send it to you. Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Talk Show. This podcast is dedicated to growth mindset. You see, I believe that you know something that I don't know, and I believe that I know something that you don't know. And the only way for each of us to both rise in our knowings is to sit in a room and share it so we can both rise. For those of you that are new to the show and love inspirational content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in.
We come to you every day with the best speakers, relationship coaches, spiritual mentors, trailblazers, business owners, authors, young hustlers, podcasters, entrepreneurs, fitness trainers, therapists, financial advisors, and more. We ask our guests one question. What do you know that I don't know? Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
Thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Talk Show. We have had 400 women plus grace this stage, and we are adding another one to the list today. If you are watching us live, welcome. If you are watching us on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're watching us at so we can send you some love. Either way, if you could do us a huge favor and you could share this video wherever you're watching us at so we can get more eyes and more ears on the awesome content that we are about to share. Her Talk Show is here to inspire and have you thinking outside the box in no time. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Erika Boehme. Erika is an intimacy and leadership coach for rebel visionary women. I love that. Activists and change makers, she is passionate about guiding women into the fullest expression of themselves and their big mission through embracing sexuality, taboo, and shame, empowering them into their bold voice, erotic power, and wholeness. She also trains coaches and leaders with accomplishment coaching and works with MindBloom as a guide for patients going through psychedelic medicine treatment. She lives in Wisconsin with her partner of 7 years. In her free time, she likes to backpack, go camping, see live music, yes, girl, garden, have sex, yes, girl, and learn about all things philosophy and human potential. Her essence is sage, valor, tranquility, anchor, bliss. So excited to sit down and chat with this amazing lady. Welcome, Erika.
Thank you. I am so excited to be on the show with you, Sabrina. Thank you for having me.
Yes, so excited to have you here. Thank you for spending some time with us. I love ladies who understand the importance of getting on to platforms like this and just sharing some stories and some inspiration and some of the things from your background and from your world in order to really help others rise. You know, so many times we're sitting in darkness, we're sitting in a struggle. We don't know where to go. We don't know where to turn. We don't know who to ask. And sometimes listening to something like this is the trigger that helps put a little bit of oomph into somebody's world and get them moving right along. So thank you.
I couldn't agree more. Thanks for holding this space so that we can all rise together. I would have said it the exact same way. I think it's so important to share our collective wisdom so that we can all rise together.
Yes. So I want to ask, what is the value that you hold? What do you know that we do not know?
Yes, I would say that shame is a gift, and that is actually the pathway to your unleashed self-expression and wholeness. Oftentimes we hold a total opposite relationship to shame, and we don't believe that it can lead to anything good. And I am here to help people rewrite that story.
I love that. So most people that are in their darkness right now or in their struggle right now would totally disagree with this. So explain to us why shame is a gift.
Yeah, so I believe that shame is a gift because it reveals so much of what is important to you and what wants to be expressed in yourself. And oftentimes we hold shame because of outside beliefs and ideals about what is right or wrong in the world. You know, there's a lot of different societal constructs that have taught us to shame different things that are just a part of the human experience. And it's like, who's to say that, like, who made these things up? So when we look at ourselves and things that we perhaps are ashamed of in ourselves, and we can bring love and acceptance into that space and trust ourselves that even with those experiences or whatever you're ashamed about, like, you are still worthy of love and connection and shining your light in the world. So when we can trust that and move forward in the world, perhaps sharing out loud the things that we're ashamed of, the things that we're taught to keep hidden in ourselves, and we go against that story and choose to express them and shine a light on these things, then it's fucking freeing. Because in that journey of stepping forward and expressing yourself, you realize that, hey, the world still goes round. Like, I am still safe. I'm still loved. I am still worthy. And then it's like, what were you so scared of before? And when you realize that that's no longer holding you back anymore, you might ask yourself, well, what else can I do? What else did I think was holding me back that maybe doesn't need to hold me back anymore? And you get to move forward with so much more power and confidence and self-love in your journey.
Yes. I love what you're saying as far as who made all these rules? Where'd they come from? Who said? Because, yeah, so many times we sit in this envelope. I don't even like to say box because sometimes it's so small. It's literally like an envelope. You can't even move around at all, depending on our background, depending on our upbringing. Sometimes it's so constricting that we can't even breathe. Can you share with us a journey or a story in your life where some people might consider it shameful?
100%. So I'll share a story that kind of led me to this journey of rewriting my relationship with shame that has me to where I am today. So when I was 20 and in college, I ended up getting pregnant with my partner at the time, and we were still together. And I chose to have an abortion. And I'm sure, as you can imagine, all the things in the world, like, there's a lot of heaviness around abortions. So it was always something that I never thought would happen to me. Like, it's one of those things where you always think it happens to other people, but not you. So when it did, it felt like this dirty secret that I had. And I really kept it hidden from the whole world for a very long time. I only ever told my partner, of course. My parents knew, one of my siblings, and then eventually a couple months later after it, I ended up telling a best friend from high school and her fiance when we were all hanging out. But I didn't even tell my very best friends from college, who I was super close to at that time, like, didn't even tell them or anyone else. And the first time that I had told someone beyond that close circle was probably like 2 years later. I was going on a backpacking trip with a friend who I didn't even know that well, because we were originally going to go with a group, but then everyone bailed and it ended up just being us two. So she was like a friend of a friend, and we were driving to our destination, you know, getting to know each other, just talking about life. And she had shared with me that she had had an abortion, and she spoke about it in a way from such acceptance and non-judgment. And being in that safe space with her, like, I felt safe enough to share with her that I had had an abortion too. And inside that conversation, I realized, like, for the first time, how much shame I actually had towards it. Like, you know, you hear people talk about shame in the world and whatever, but it was nothing that I had ever felt connected to, that I was someone who had shame. And I'm sure, you know, there were experiences in life where I felt shame, but I never realized it as such until I was in that conversation with her. And it also just hit me like, oh my God, like, I wonder how many other women have had abortions, and how many other women are hiding their shame around it and are feeling so alone in their experience. And that moment had me realize that I'm actually really normal, and that this isn't like a dirty secret. There's nothing wrong with me. And that led me on a path of liberating my shame around it. And it led me to this self-inquiry, to ask myself, well, what else am I hiding? What else am I ashamed of? Like, what is the impact of carrying this baggage on me? Because I was definitely using it as a weapon against myself. And like, you know, what does it mean about me to have had an abortion and all of that? So yeah, it called me into this journey of looking at my shame, feeling my shame, being honest with myself about my shame. And I ended up going on this like shame liberation binge. And I told many people in my life the things that I was ashamed about. And I shared online the things that I had been ashamed about. And in doing that, it was so freeing. It was so empowering. Like, it no longer was a weight on me anymore. So I think I answered your question. That's one story from my life that kind of led me to how passionate I am about this topic today.
Yeah, definitely. You know, as you were speaking, so my story is actually similar. I got pregnant at 20, but I now have a 19-year-old son.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting about it is I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and I got pregnant at 20 with no husband. So there was a ton of shame around having the baby.
Mm-hmm.
So how interesting that is it's the same exact story, and there's shame on both ends.
Yeah.
And how unfortunate that is, that it's a lose-lose sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
if we decide for it to be a lose-lose, you know.
Right. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. And I think it's a fundamental like thing in our society to, like you were saying before, have these envelopes that we funnel things into based on religion or societal constructs of like what is good or bad and right or wrong. And sometimes it does put us in a lose-lose game. Like, no matter what we choose, like, there might be that element of shame that gets put on us, or that we think that like we have to believe or buy into.
Is the cure for releasing shame telling everybody? Like, do we have to do what you did? Do we have to do what Erika did and just shout it from the rooftops, all of our shame? How do we release shame without shouting it from the rooftops?
Totally. And yeah, what I did is perhaps extreme, and I wouldn't say that's necessary for everyone. And that might feel really unsafe for a lot of people. And regardless of where you are, I would have you start with creating an intimate experience with yourself. And that's where I started, actually. Like, I didn't start with sharing with the whole world. I actually started with going inward and noticing, like, where do I feel shame in my body? Where does that show up? Like, what are the thought patterns that are associated with it? And looking at that and like feeling it, letting it be there, accepting it, allowing it, like realizing that it is a natural human experience and that there's nothing wrong with it. So really creating that acceptance around it first. And then, I got into some other things that helped me rewrite it. But a part of my process, like why it was so important for me to talk about it with others, is because that's where it started for me with this friend who I was going on the backpack with. Like, had she not shared with me that she had an abortion, I don't know if I would have, like, who knows, maybe down the road someone else would have shared with me that they had an abortion. But I remember after that, like, I was in so many different conversations where women would share that. And like each time I was in a conversation with another person to normalize it, it lifted the shame for me. And the same thing happened with other things I was shamed for, like having debt. The more I talked with, friends or other people about debt, I'm like, oh, that's like a normal thing to have. Like, why am I so ashamed of that? So that's a little insight in what there was access for to me in sharing it with others. But by no means is that a place to start or is even necessary. But I do think it's really powerful, because how shame stays alive is by keeping itself hidden. So when we no longer keep it alive by keeping it hidden and being alone with it, but be vulnerable with others and share our experience with others, it helps to rewrite that shame story.
Yeah. What are your thoughts as far as, I'm trying to, in my head, like, I'm thinking of things that are not shameful, right? So, eating an apple. I don't know. You wouldn't go around the earth just announcing to people that you ate an apple on April 7th at 3:20. That's like, there's no shame in eating an apple on April 7th. It's just a thing. It just is. You just ate an apple and you go on with your life. In order to get to a point of no shame, should something like debt or an abortion be as minute, if it really didn't have shame, as eating an apple on April 7th? Like, what's the difference between eating an apple on April 7th and getting an abortion on April 7th?
Yeah, I think it's what's the word I want to think of? It's not contradiction, but it starts with a C.
Cognitive dissonance.
No, it's when there's like two sides to it.
It's not
like
cognitive dissonance.
Maybe. Anyways, I think it's like the beliefs we have about it, like societal beliefs we have about it, like making it right or wrong. So like some people have strong beliefs about abortions, and like some people have complete opposite beliefs. There's a word for that. But I think, that's the thing. Like a lot of like in religions, you know, there's like shame is used to control people, and like with money, we might think we're like small or less than. So like things that like create hierarchy, where we feel like we're a good person or a bad person. Like with money, for example, like if you're successful, if you have a lot of money, like there's a lot of pride in that, and our society like trains us to believe that. So if we're not that, then we begin to think like, well, am I not as good? Am I less than? Like, is there something wrong with me? And like that's how shame can creep in. And so I don't think there's, you know, that many extreme beliefs around eating an apple. So like that's the difference. Like the beliefs we attach to choices in life and what constitutes a good one or a bad one, and therefore what makes us a good person or a bad person, and therefore what makes us worthy of love or not worthy of love. So those are all like the intricate stories and beliefs that get entangled in our life experiences and our life decisions that can either empower us or disempower us.
I love that. I remember having a conversation with a woman, not on this show, but just having a conversation. And I remember her talking about, I don't even remember what this woman's name was, but she was talking about how she had had an abortion. She felt no guilt and no shame around the abortion. Like, it's just something that happened. And every once in a while, she would feel like shameful around not having shame.
Yeah.
And how interesting that is.
Right.
Known as being something that should be shameful, she actually felt like there was something wrong with her for not having those same feelings around it. So really tuning in and honing into this, what are the steps? What is something that somebody who's holding a lot of shame or a lot of guilt should start to do in order to lessen that load? Like, what's an exercise or a meditation or something that they should start doing to heal?
Totally. First couple things I want to say before I answer that. I thought of the word. It's controversial.
Oh,
and
I love it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I'm like, duh. And what you spoke to just now about like having shame, about not having shame, such a common thing that I see in my work, like this feeling bad for feeling good. I think we have a cultural conditioning around suffering where we all like can connect and relate to each other about our suffering. So when we're not suffering, it feels really uncomfortable and we almost feel like we shouldn't, or like, you know, who am I to be successful or feel good when others aren't? So it's a very real thing where we can have shame about good or bad things, and it's just so interesting. And you know, whatever your shame or your guilt is attached to, I definitely always have people start with noticing it. Like for me, there was shame going on for years and I didn't even know it. Like I often attributed it to just like self-doubt or not believing in myself, until I was like, no, this is like actual like shame, like feeling bad about myself. So one, noticing it. What are the little threads or beliefs that are attached to your feelings of shame? And getting intimate with yourself to realize, how does your shame express itself? What does it feel like when you are experiencing shame, so that you can start to recognize those sensations in your day-to-day life? Because once you are aware of it, then in the moment you have the ability to make a shift or do something different. And then from there, I would have you, look at, where does this shame come from? Like, who said I should be ashamed about this? Like, who wrote the book of life that has me believing this about myself? So like, where do those beliefs come from? And then like asking yourself, what's another way that I want to think about this? If it doesn't feel good to feel shame about this and make myself feel wrong about this, how do I want to feel about it? So like for me, in my abortion, I rewrote the story by saying, this is so normal. I'm not an isolated case. Like, it's so common for women to have abortions. And just like bottom line, like, I'm not gonna make myself wrong for having had one. This was my life path. This was my decision, and I'm choosing to own that now. So once we own our life experience and our decisions, then the shame can't have as much power over us anymore. Another thing I would add is definitely connect with others about it so that you're not alone in your experience, because sometimes our mind is too powerful, especially when we get feelings in there, and our feelings overpower our mind. So when we have other people with us who can bring us back down to earth and who we are and help remind us that like we're worthy of love, and these beliefs that we want to empower about ourselves like are worthy of that.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense as far as making sure you're connecting. I remember as I started to shift mentally and emotionally, and when I finally started to speak to people who thought the same way I thought, I just remember this feeling of like relief, that I wasn't the only one that was thinking these things or going through these things, and really being able to relate to others had a lot to do with how quickly I was able to pivot into a more optimistic mindset from where I was. Great advice. Totally agree with that. What are some shifts that somebody can expect to feel as they're on their healing journey?
The first one that comes to me is more energy, because when you're spending all that time in your head or in your emotions, beating yourself up in some sort of disempowering cycle, it takes a lot of energy to be with. So when that's not weighing us down like a backpack full of rocks, you can imagine you'd have more energy to greet your life. So that's one thing. And then I would definitely say more confidence. The more you can empower your choices and your decisions, like you're just gonna have more confidence to keep doing that. And with that confidence, I see comes greater self-expression, your ability to step into the world, like on the stage, metaphorically being like, here I am, like I'm worthy of this life. There's nothing wrong with me. And like, I want others to see who I am because I love who I am. And when we're able to do that, like you're able to be more intimately connected with others, because there's nothing you need to hide about yourself. There's nothing you need to like go in a corner and be alone with. Even if, it used to be something you were ashamed about, like that then can become vulnerability where you can deeply connect to others who have had a similar experience of you. And we get to connect like on a human to human level. And that's definitely been my experience. I used to be such a loner and like used to say I hated people, and I don't know if I was scared of people or just shy, but going through my healing journey, now I'm able to be on podcasts and I love meeting new people. And my past self, like she would have been like, who is this girl? Like, that's not me. So I think that's one of the greatest gifts of a healing journey, is a deeper human to human connection. And the result of that I think is so powerful, because I believe that one of the greatest breakdowns of humanity right now is separation. Everyone just doing their thing alone rather than together.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. As far as, we talked about abortion, we talked about having a child. Both of these are related to sex. And there's a lot of shame around sex, especially on the female side, which again is just crazy to me. One of the things that I never understood to this day is like, in order for a guy to have sex, he has to have sex with a girl. So like, I mean, despite the LGBTQ community, right? But so how did we get stuck with that when like it takes the two people doing it to actually have it happen? The whole concept of how this happened is just so weird to me. Like, I just don't understand how this fell on us when both people are doing the same act at the same time. It's just so strange. But I want to ask you about, sexuality in regards to shame, what that looks like, and how you really help women rise to a different understanding.
Yeah, well, first of all, I love the inquiry of like, what the fuck? How did women get the short end of the stick? It takes two people to tango. And my answer to that is a woman who is connected to her sexuality will change the world. Like, we have been suppressed as women for thousands and thousands of years, because when we are connected to our power, we are very powerful. And that was feared by the patriarchy in the past. So things got misconstrued, ideas were thrown into the book of life that had us believe that we need to shame this part of ourselves, because once we shame that part of ourselves, we stay hidden. We stay not self-expressed. We're not in our power. And if we were in our power, that could be a scary thing to some. So there's so much history and things I could speak to as to what happened in there, but that's the gist of it. And because of that, so many women are conditioned to keep themselves small, to be disconnected to their pleasure and their joy, because we've been taught to shame it. So how I help women create a different understanding is by guiding them to connect to that powerful part of themselves that they've been shut off from for so long. And then once they get a taste of it, they're like, oh my gosh, this, having a relationship to my sexual energy and my pleasure gives me so much more vitality, energy, creativity, confidence, gives me a louder voice in the world. Once they experience that, even if it's just a little taste, it's like you can't go back from that. And then I educate them that we were suppressed for a reason, and we don't need to play that game anymore. And what's available for you if you don't listen to that story anymore? So once women see what's possible, they usually get angry first, and then they want to rebel against what has been suppressing them for so long, and they reclaim their power. And it's hard to stop a woman from doing that once she knows and once she's connected to what she is capable of.
So when you're saying suppressed because when women step into their sexuality, they're powerful, like, can you give me an example? Like,
Yeah.
I am understanding this, but I'm nervous that I'm thinking something different than what it is.
Yeah, so your sexual energy is so powerful because it creates life. Like, it literally creates human life. And beyond just creating human life, it is this energy of creation. It creates ideas in the world, you know, projects you might want to manifest or, you know, bring into reality. And it comes from desire. So how to make any change in the world, like, starts with an idea. So when a woman is connected to this sexual energy, she becomes more able to create her life, create life and ideas how she wants to, from a place that's within versus what society has taught her to want, or to what is good, what is successful. And she's more connected to her inner knowing. And then from that place, there's more trust, there's more confidence in the path forward. And when others want to confuse you and think it's not a good idea, like, you can come back to your sense of self, your seat of power, and use your voice to maybe set boundaries or continue to share your radical ideas, whatever it is, in an unstoppable way. Does that connect? Or I'm curious what you're thinking of.
Yeah, it does connect. And I do understand that. Definitely more curious though. What else? What's the takeaway here? What should women be taking away from the last 36 minutes? What's the aha moment?
I think that women should take away that they're more powerful than maybe they were taught to think that they are. And any story, belief that's in your way right now of thinking that you're powerful, whether it be shame or whatever, perhaps it's a lie. Perhaps it's something that's been invented that actually isn't true, and that you get to decide what is true for you. And once you can do that, you're living a more sovereign life. It's more fulfilling to you. It's more empowering, and it's actually aligned with what you want to be doing in this precious lifetime that we have.
Love that. You know what this is reminding me of a little bit is my last not my last relationship, but a very long abusive relationship that I was in. When you're dealing with toxic individuals, they do something called gaslighting, where, like, you know something to be true, and then they tell you it's not true. And then you're kind of like, wait, maybe it isn't true. Mm-hmm. And the lies that they tell you, like, when I got into the relationship, you know, I considered myself smart. I considered myself capable. By the time I left the relationship, or I guess in the middle of the relationship, I was at a point mentally and emotionally where I was like, I am incapable of doing anything on my own, and I am incredibly stupid. And so when you're talking, I'm like, how could an entire species get tricked into thinking that their sexuality is shameful? But then I'm remembering that, like, if I would have stayed in that relationship, I would have had children, females, or males, children, and then those children would have thought very similarly to the way that our household was being run.
Yeah.
I never had children with him, thank God. But I can see that. So if a man continuously tells a woman that something she is doing is shameful, she might not believe it for the first couple of times, but if it continues to happen, And then if a group of men get together and say the same thing, I can see that cycling into something, especially if they're all getting together and they're like, whoa, 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 we have to put a stop to this.
100%. And I think that's how we're indoctrinated with so many different beliefs in the world.
Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting. Well, I would love for you to, by the way, I want to thank those that are watching live. Thank you so much for being here, for hanging out with us. For those of you that are writing comments, we love the comments that come up to play. We had some really awesome things. Shannon said, the energy shift to healing is surprisingly more empowering than I thought. And the energy boost is legit as far as the energy that you're going to feel coming out of that. I do want to ask, for those that are watching live or on the replay and really wanting to get a better understanding of who you help, can you explain to us who should be reaching out to you, who you cater to?
Totally. So I don't like to box myself in, as I'm sure you can imagine. And I'm always happy to connect with all types of people. But the people in the world that just turn me on, light me up so much are who I would describe as rebel visionaries, and specifically rebel visionary women. So these are people who can see that the way we're doing life and building this world, like perhaps there's a better way. And they're not interested in going through the motions and the status quo, but rather they have ideas to revolutionize the human experience so that more of us can be empowered and connected. So these are what I call rebel visionaries. I consider myself one, and anyone who has an idea to revolutionize the human experience, you have this like mission obsessed energy inside of you, and you like to do things differently and dare to do, be, and say things that nobody else would. I'd love to connect with you. And maybe if you don't consider yourself as that, or there's a little piece of that inside of you, but it's scared to come out for whatever reason, like love to help women become unleashed in their self-expression and do the mission work that they came on this earth to do.
Beautiful. Where can people find you?
So my favorite space to play and express myself is Instagram, and you can see my name right here. So my handle is literally just my first and last name at Erika Boehme. You can find me there. I'm also on LinkedIn. I have a website, which you can also see here. So those are some places that you can find me.
Beautiful. And why do you do what you do?
I do what I do to co-create heaven on earth. That is my purpose in the world, and I have a dream to create a more connected world where we all get to thrive and get to live in co-creation with the earth and each other.
Beautiful. Oh, Shannon said that was beautiful too. Thank you so much. I so appreciate you coming on. All of the content today was incredibly inspirational and insightful. So appreciate you taking some time out of your day to sit down, hang out, and share some of your awesomeness with us. Any closing thoughts as we wrap up?
I just want to say it was such a pleasure to be in this space, and I saw some little comments coming in here and there. So thank you everyone who was listening live and was sharing your energy and your words with us, and to anyone watching the replay. Thanks so much for taking your time to sink into this content, and I see that you're part of co-creating heaven on earth by just being in this conversation with us. So thank you.
Perfect. so much. I appreciate you, Erika. For those of you watching live or on the replay, if you resonate with Erika and all the goodness that she shared today, make sure you connect with her. Her website is underneath her face area and also in the description below, wherever you're watching us at. She hangs out predominantly on Instagram under her name, Erika Boehme. So find her, connect with her. We love to connect people here on this platform in order to make sure that we all continue to rise. Thank you so much for joining us here on Her Talk Show. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. If you are looking to get onto this show, make sure you check us out at hernation.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows